Welcome to another session of Searching for Salvation. You know what our aim here is. Our goal is to hopefully show that the Word of God is something that you need to study for yourself. It needs to come directly from Jesus, and that's through His Word. And we've been talking about different things that hopefully will show, not that I'm asking anybody to take my opinion for anything. I've said, no, don't do that. We must search for the truth where it can be found. That's in the New Testament and His Word. 2 weeks ago, we talked about how do we handle or become compliant with the two greatest commandments. And I suggested that 1 Corinthians 13 really gives us the answer. Everything we must do must be couched in love. It's the only way I know of that we can get closer and closer to achieving the goal of putting God where He needs to be and taking care of our neighbor the way we need to. Last week, we talked about the contrast between how the world looks at money and how the Lord looks at money. And tonight, we're going to do something similarly. We're going to be talking about sexual immorality, and we're going to look at it historically somewhat, and also look at it how the world looks at it, and then how the scriptures look at it. Ever since the patriarchal age, as long as there's been sex, there has been sexual immorality, and that will continue until the end of time. It's something every generation, every human being has to deal with. But the answers of how to deal with it are there. We just have to open the book to find them. In the first century, you remember they had a situation where the Judaizing teachers were troubling the churches. And they were saying, you have to be circumcised to be a Christian. And Paul brought it to the Jerusalem. They had a discussion about it. And they wrote a letter back to the churches. And they said, abstain from idols. Abstain from fornication. Abstain from things strangled and from blood. The first two those first two subjects are connected, and we'll see that right now. In the first century, they were pagans. Anyone who came to Christ came out of paganism. And back then, because of that, their attitude towards sex was simply that it was another need of the body. In other words, they looked at it as if it was a drink. If you're thirsty, get a drink of water. If you're hungry, go ahead and have a meal. If you feel the need to have sex, go ahead and have it. Doesn't matter, marriage or not married. And this was fostered in a lot because of their idol worship. They would go to the temple, and there was various deities they worshipped, but almost all of them had priestesses. And when they got there, they were encouraged, if they wanted to have sex with these priestesses, supposedly to allow them to find a greater understanding of whatever they were worshiping. But that was true everywhere. As a matter of fact, most of societies in the first century, a woman was required one day a year to go to the temple and to perform the duties of a priestess. And you can see when you get to that point, you've got a real problem. And we're going to look ahead, and we're going to see that we may be right there right now. So what they had to do is the Lord had to overcome the training of centuries, overcoming the ability to show that sex has to be controlled. They came from a situation where sex was anything okay to when they became a Christian, sex was only for marriage. This was something that was very difficult for them to deal with, and they fought it all the time, just as we do. Today, I think we're in the same situation. Between two consenting adults, anything goes. There's no problem with that at all. Our morality is almost non-existent. We're bombarded in every venue by sex. And of course, we know that's the enemy's work. But the church, we're the braking system. We're the ones that are supposed to be able to help our membership deal with it, but also by example show, the world, no, that's not how you behave. If you want to, you need to behave like this. Everything God tells us not to do, if we do it, there's going to be consequences, negative consequences. If we do what He says, then we're going to have a better life. In our age now, or our century, it seems to me that there are only 4 taboos left, and I'm very thankful for those. One of them is statutory rape, which is obviously everyone knows that's sex with a minor. Then there's did I say statutory rape? Okay, thank you. And then there's rape. Everyone knows what that is. There's also pedophilia. We all know what that is. That's one of the biggest taboos that we have left. And also incest. It's right in there with them. And as I say, thank God we have those. The only way this can be changed, this attitude can be changed, is through trying to follow what Jesus Christ tells us to do. The only way you overcome anything like a sexual problem is with the Lord. It's too strong. It's a drive that's so natural that, and because of our society, we're bombarded with it. There's always this chance that we're going to be tempted. And the only way we can resist that, I believe, this is my opinion, is that we have to become as close to Christ as we can. If we can do that, then we can overcome anything, of course. But this particular situation, as I said, sexual immorality has ruined so many people's lives. It's amazing. And once you make the mistake and you begin to pay for the consequences, you know that. You know how terrible it was to make that mistake. But you can be redeemed through Jesus Christ. And thankfully, we have that. We can fall down. We can fall prey to sin, but we can ask for forgiveness and be forgiven. So that's what we need to do as far as sexual immorality. Here's what the world says about. There's a couple of subjects that I want to cover before we leave here. The first one is doctors, psychiatrists will tell you that masturbation is not only okay, but it's healthy. Well, what does the Word of God say about it? Well, let's look back in Genesis. The Jews had a requirement that if your brother was married and he had no children by his wife, then it was the brother's responsibility to provide children for his brother through having sex with his widow. And this was accepted. This is what God wanted them to do. Well, there's a circumstance there that this particular man, for whatever reason, decided he did not want to have children for his brother because they wouldn't be his. And so he decided that he would just spill his seed on the ground. God killed him. God killed him. Which seems to me that there's something that we really need to realize here, that our sexual urges need to be controlled. Jesus said that he said, in the 10 Commandments, do not commit adultery. He said that if you look upon a woman and lust for her, as if you've had sex with her in your mind, you've committed adultery. He also said that if your hand bothers you, causing you to sin, get rid of it. If your eye is bothering you, get rid of it. And you know what he's talking about. These things are there for our protection, because unfortunately, we all have to deal with this. Well, I hope that I've been able to get something across on this. It's been a difficult subject for me because there's so many different directions to go as far as how do you attack this problem. And I really don't have the answers. So, but I know there are people out there. There are congregations of the Lord's people that are working diligently to try to protect their membership and to make a difference in the world from the standpoint of fighting against sexual immorality. So we can take comfort from that and know that it's never too late. Jesus is there to help us at any time. So I don't know what our subject will be the next time. It'll be another question or another situation that we have to deal with in our lives, because that's why we're doing this. Because if you read the Bible, you're going to see subjects many times that you're going to say, what does this mean? What do I need to do with this? And that's why we're doing this. We're having these sessions about these questions. And remember, don't take what I'm saying as gospel. It's not. It's my opinion. We're trying to get you to open the book and see if there's something in there that sounds familiar with what I've said. In other words, Scripture. I'm talking about Scripture, not what I've said. You have to listen to Jesus. It's quite simply. That's what you have to do. The only way I know to do that, one-on-one, is to open the Bible, which is His Word. John tells us He's the Word made flesh. That's where we have to go. So anyway, I hope you guys have a good week, and God bless you.